Friends, welcome to another episode of Deep True Crime. I'm Manny Rodriguez. Thank you for joining me today. In today's episode, we are sharing with you the chilling story of Richard Darren Emery, sentenced to the death penalty for killing a family of four. And it was actually his girlfriend's family. We're going to dive into this story and let you know exactly what happened and basically from beginning to end. So let's go ahead and dive into it. Since 1769, St. Charles, Missouri, a restored historic city on the Missouri River, has been welcoming visitors to its shores for many, many years. Founded by French-Canadian fur trader Louis Blanchet, the city was named Les Petites Côtes, which also means the Little Hills, which later evolved into St. Charles. The town regularly welcomed guests from many nations and grew into an important trading center for countless pioneers. Because of its strategic location on the Missouri River and its entrance to the Western Territory known as the Louisiana Purchase, it was a critical destination for tens of thousands of travelers. St. Charles is a city in and the county seat of St. Charles County, Missouri, in the United States. The population is over 60,000 people that make this place a residence. And it also makes it the St. Charles makes St. Charles the ninth largest city in Missouri. Situated on the Missouri River, St. Charles, Missouri is a northwestern suburb of St. Louis. And on December 28th, 2018, at approximately 11:55 p.m., police were dispatched to a call of shots fired at 150 Whetstone Drive. And here is where a lot of bad things would occur. You see, at 11:58, officers arrived on scene, and while approaching the residence, they observed a white Chevrolet Silverado bearing Missouri license plate 2020 license plate 9AV536, running without anybody inside the vehicle in the driveway of the residence. And before you know it, that was like, okay, what's going on here? And as officers made their approach, they observed a white male, later determined to be Richard Darren Emery, enter the truck and leave. Officers immediately notified dispatch and officers responding in the area. And before you know it, at approximately midnight, officers in the area observed the white Chevy with that license plate 9AV536 leaving the subdivision where Whetstone Drive is located and attempted to stop the vehicle. And before you know it, he's on the run. But before he does that, officers followed the vehicle, which failed to yield, which eventually stopped on Cheshire at Mugie Road. Officers demanded that the driver show his hands, at which time the suspect, later identified as Richard D. Emery, exited the truck, displayed a handgun, and fired multiple shots at two officers, striking the police vehicle 8 times in the open driver's door frame, and grill. Officers returned fire as Emery ran until he was out of sight. And they matched the license plate number to be registered to Richard Emery, who resides at Whetstone Drive. At the same time that all of this is going on, officers at the residence were responding inside of the home, and they observed 4 victims with apparent gunshot wounds. 3 victims were obviously deceased on arrival: Jane Moeckel Campbell, Zoe Kasten, and Jonathan Kasten. They were found in the upstairs south bedroom. And the 4th victim, Kate Kasten, was discovered in the north bedroom and transported to the Mercy Medical Center, where they tried everything they can to keep her alive, but shortly after arriving at the hospital, she later died. And before you know it, they're trying to find this perpetrator who is now on the run. And at approximately 12:32 a.m., officer received a call at 24 Delacroix, approximately 1.1 miles away from the scene on Whetstone Drive, for a stabbing. The victim described a white male wearing a blue sweatshirt that resembled the description from the officer-involved shooting suspect. The victim stated the suspect approached her and told her, "I gotta get out of here," and attempted to take her vehicle. And before you know it, she stated he then stabbed her multiple times to her torso and fled on foot. She was transported to St. Joseph's emergency room and listed as critical stable condition. And during the next several hours, they're looking all over for this criminal who is on the run. So for the next several hours, a massive response by officers all over the city and county, to include the activation of the Major Case Squad of Greater St. Louis, attempted to apprehend Richard D. Emery, who again has been on the run now for almost 7 years. But they did not know where he was. At approximately 7:23 a.m., a 911 call was received by St. Charles Police Dispatch from the Quick Trip that was located at 2260 First Capitol Drive. And that is where it would come to find out that he was this in this bad place. He was in this Quick Trip as he was trying to hide, but obviously he would not get very far. And so that's where they're trying to figure out, okay, this sounds like him. So the caller stated that a white male entered the store bleeding heavily from an apparent gunshot wound and entered the bathroom. As you can see in this video, this is the actual QT there at the same address that I just shared with you. I live near this location, and this is exactly why I was able to go and get video of this location. I remember when this terrible story broke loose. And you know, for me, I'm like, how could anyone do this? A family of 4 was like, it was unbelievable to wake up and hear all this news. And then little by little more information was coming out about this. But it was only a matter of time before we would find out more as to what exactly happened, right? And so at 7:40 a.m. that morning, detectives advised Emery of his rights per Miranda rights. Now, Miranda rights means you have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you, which he verbally stated he understood. Detectives asked Emery where the gun was that he used to shoot at officers. Emery stated he discarded it after crossing Mugi. Emery then asked, "Is the lady okay?" Detectives confirmed with him that the lady you tried to carjack. Emery replied, "Yes." Detectives then asked Emery where the knife was he used to stab her with, and Emery replied, "The southwest corner in the grass of a car lot." Now, while detectives were sitting in trauma room with Emery, he asked, "Are you the officers that I shot at?" Detectives stated they were not, but they were friends. Emery asked, "Did I hit any of them?" and apologized for shooting at them. Following Emery's statements, both the handgun and knife were located by investigators. And police in St. Charles, Missouri, they arrested the former Lemoore High School graduate, which you can see his high school picture here in front of you, Richard Darren Emery. They arrested him as the suspect in the murders of his girlfriend, her grandmother, and her 2 children in what police are calling what police called a horrific crime. And the mother of 2 children, Kate Kasten, only 39 years old, taken from this world way too soon, who police say was his girlfriend, was also in the house. She was fatally wounded and died later at a hospital, as I shared with you earlier. Prosecutors were calling the carnage a gruesome scene. And police received that 911 call late Friday night, December 28th. This is 3 days after Christmas. And police dispatchers heard gunshots in the background while on the line. Jane Moeckel, 61 years old, rest in peace, Jane. She is the grandmother to the 2 kids and the mother of Kate. She barricaded herself in a downstairs room with her 2 children, Zoe, and with her 2 grandchildren, Zoe Kasten, 8 years old, rest in peace, Zoe, and Jonathan Kasten, 10 years old, rest in peace, Jonathan. Jane did everything she could to protect her 2 grandbabies, but Richard Emery, he lost his mind that night. He broke through the door and killed all 3 of them after shooting down Kate. And this is where it's like, you really lose your mind if you're capable of doing such a thing. After an all-night search, police finally caught up with Richard Emery. And police charged him with 15 crimes, including first-degree murder, armed criminal action, assault in the first degree, and attempted robbery in the first degree. Each of the charges carries a sentence of 30 years to life, but prosecutors were going after the death penalty. Police said that Emery, a 1990 Lemoore High School graduate, did not appear to have a criminal record. Police apprehended the suspect following this 7-hour chase, and at one point the suspect tried to carjack the woman after stabbing her in a residential street, trying to get her as she was pulling away. And he stabbed her at least 7 to 8 times. The woman was reported in critical condition, but was expected to survive. Police finally catch up with Emery in that quick trip bathroom that I shared with you, as he was suffering from gunshot wounds in his neck and hip. Police say they believe Emery lived in the home and was Kate Kasten's boyfriend. And his Facebook includes several photos of Emery with his girlfriend and children. And it also lists the Lemoore High School as his alma mater and has several LHS grads as Facebook friends, including the school's Foundation for Educational Excellence. Now, one of those Facebook friends is a local attorney and LHS grad, Bill Perry, who says he knew the suspect well in high school, but hasn't seen him at all since his 1990 graduation. He says he was really nice in high school, remembered Perry as he was sharing. My recollections were that he was a very nice guy, and I was shocked and saddened by what I read. Perry admits that he doesn't remember much, but does recall that he attended junior high and high school in Lemoore. Emery who often goes by his middle name Darren, exchanged gunfire with officers as he fled. He was, as I mentioned, he was captured hours later, wounded and covered in blood. And calling this incident horrific, CBS News reported St. Charles County prosecuting attorney Tim Lohmar said during a news conference, "What can possess someone to take the life of a child is beyond me, and we may never know." This one in particular was the worst example of a domestic violence case. Anytime you have a domestic violence case, you worry about the safety of the victims, and this would be your worst nightmare. And right out of the gate, when this all occurred, Mr. Lohmar stated, "It's premature for us to make any sort of pronouncement about that right now, but I can tell you this thing looks and smells like a death penalty case." And this is where it's extremely hard to even know about this, because we come to find out that this poor mom, not only did she go through this terrible ordeal, but we find out that the children's father, Corey Kasten, passed away after losing his battle with cancer in 2017. And his aunt, Diane Kasten, she posted a tribute to the family after this terrible ordeal. And she shares, "My beloved nephew, Corey, with the family he loved so much," she posted on Facebook alongside a snap of her late family, "all stolen from us. Corey by cancer in April 2017, and now Kate, Jonathan, and Zoe by a man with a gun. I will miss you all every day for the rest of my life. There are no words." Records show that Richard Emery had two previous divorces. He was divorced in 2000 and he was divorced again in 2007. In both of these cases, the wife was the petitioner to get the divorce. What would drive a man to do such a heinous act? Richard Emery's trial would begin September 20th, 2022 of this year. He told a St. Charles jury about a murderous night in a courtroom during his trial. It's the first time they've heard from Emery about the murderous night there. There is one thing Emery has repeatedly said on the stand: "I don't know." Those were his words over and over. His testimony on his memory of the night of the murder cast a blurry picture. He admitted to the killings, but said he does not remember many of the specifics. Now, prosecutors spent more than 6 hours pressing Emery about the night he admitted to killing his girlfriend, Kate Kasten, and her family. And he told the jury the killings were an out-of-body experience. And he says, "Sir, I was not in control, no." And that's what Emery would say while sitting on the stand. And the question comes from the prosecutor: who pulled the trigger? And Emery says, "I did." Emery said the trial has opened his eyes to things he was previously unaware of. He says, "I learned a lot about this during the trial. I didn't look at or was provided crime scene photos, autopsy photos." Prosecutors attempted to refresh his memory by playing a portion of the responding officer's body camera video. The judge did not allow sound to be recorded in the courtroom. A prosecutor asked Emery why he shot Kasten's 10-year-old son, Jonathan, 3 times. At that moment, he breaks down after the question, saying he didn't know why he did it. He breaks down crying. After fleeing the house, Emery said he saw 2 police officers along Mugie Road. He turned in the opposite direction. After seeing them, he would share, and prosecutors asked, "Why did you turn around?" He said, I knew I was absolutely screwed at that point because of what happened, because of what I already told you, sir. I was aware, but I was not conscious. Now, this whole case had hinged on whether Emery was in some kind of disassociated state that would have prevented him from deliberating about the murders. And according to prosecutors, on the evening of December 28, 2018, Kasten asked Emery to stay home for a night in with the family. Instead, Emery went out to Throwback's Bar and Grill, returning home around 11:30 p.m. that night. While out, the two were texting each other, with Kasten suggesting sex when he returned home. However, prosecutors believe the two got into an argument instead, in which Kasten asked Emery to leave. Now, Richard Emery, he bought a Lego set for Christmas for little Jonathan. Again, Jonathan's only 10 years old. He was so excited about this Lego set. He put this Lego set together and he wanted approval from Richard. Everyone was really beginning to like Richard. Everyone actually did like Richard. But Jonathan's feelings were hurt that Richard Emery did not acknowledge that this build of the Lego set. And so this hurt Jonathan's feelings. When he got back after drinking and doing whatever else he was doing that night, he got back and a fight broke out, an argument broke out between Kate and Darren. And it was over the Lego. So a jury recommended the death penalty for Mr. Emery, who slaughtered his family after a fight over a Lego combined with his girlfriend's menstrual moodiness. That's what he said. He shares, "I'm the one that apparently is sick." That's what he would share through his tears. "I don't know. They didn't deserve me. I most definitely didn't deserve them." He added, "They were the best thing that ever happened to me. As usual, I screwed it up." Emery gunned down Kasten after she told him to leave the house during an argument about a Lego set her son had built. Emery shot the children and their grandmother at point blank range because they witnessed Kasten being shot. He then shot at a police officer and stabbed a woman 7 times after carjacking her in his attempt to flee. A St. Charles judge has formally sentenced Richard Darren Emery, 50 years old, to death. And a jury found Emery guilty of 4 counts of first-degree murder in this 2018 shooting death of a St. Charles family and the jury, and sentenced him to death on all 4 counts. Judge Michael Fogras formally sentenced Emery to death on November 3rd. Emery admitted to shooting and killing his girlfriend Kate Kasten, her children Jonathan Kasten, Zoe Kasten, and their grandmother Jane Moeckel on December 28, 2018 at their St. Charles home. But he said he was in a disassociated state that evening and unable to understand his actions. The fight allegedly spilled into their master bedroom, he testified, where Kasten slapped Emery across the face and told him, "Get the F out of my house." While on the stand, Emery testified the argument grew into a physical fight in which he admitted to pushing Kasten down and punching her. However, he testified to having no memory of retrieving his pistol from his safe in the nightstand. The fight spilled into their master bedroom, and that's where he says he lost it. Crime scene analysts testified to evidence indicating a total of 9 shots were fired inside the home, 7 of them hitting the victims. During a fight over the gun, they believe Emery fired 2 shots, striking the wall and floor. Kate was then shot once in the shoulder and once in the head before prosecutors alleged Emery stepped over her body, leaving a bloody footprint to move into the next bedroom. There, Jane Moeckel and her two grandchildren had barricaded themselves inside, with Moeckel on the phone with 911. In the frantic call played for the jury, she can be heard saying, "He has a gun, he's beating us." Shortly thereafter, a loud sound can be heard in the background, which detectives believe was Emery kicking in the bedroom door. Several pops and then heard, and the call goes. Several pops are then heard, and the call goes quiet. Further, before leaving the house, Emery had close to 1,000 rounds of ammunition and several firearms. Looking at his Facebook, you can see that he practiced shooting a lot of firearms. Prosecutors told the jury it was a sign he anticipated the police response, aware Moeckel had been on the phone with the 911 before he shot her. Emery testified he did not kill his dog, also in the home, something prosecutors said showed he was in a clear mindset in making that decision. Lastly, prosecutors told the jury they believe Emery killed Moeckel because she was on the phone with 911, the children because they were eyewitnesses, and Kate Kasten because he was angry following the Lego fight. This is about him not wanting to take responsibility, said Assistant Prosecutor Phil Groenweg. Emery's attorney encouraged the jury to look at the circumstances of the case, contending Emery was not in control of his actions the night of the killings and was fearful of the abandonment that would come along with losing Kasten and her kids. Now, Rick Moeckel, he is the dad of Kate Kasten and his grandchildren, Zoe and Jonathan, and his ex-wife, Jane Moeckel. And he says they were happy. They loved life. Kate was my only daughter. Moeckel tells Five on Your Side he spoke to his daughter every single day and would pick up the kids from the school bus. He talks about the hardship his family faced in 2017 when Kasten's husband passed away from cancer. She then met Darren Emery. The two started dating and Emery moved in. Moeckel said he never heard of any fights. He saw his daughter just a few days before things took a turn for the absolute worst. December 23rd, we had dinner at their house. Everything was fine. Everyone was happy, he shares. However, on December 28, 2018, Emery shot and killed Kasten, her two children, and her mother. He was on a mission, he added. Moeckel went from grief to the gavel, searching for justice. Moeckel stepped out when the crime scene photos and videos were shown in the courtroom, but he did hear the 911 phone call. In that call, you can hear gunshots go off as Zoe asked Emery why he was doing this. If there ever is a reason to put someone to death, this is the reason. To cold-heartedly kill 4 people, and 2 of them being kids, one of them talking to you and shooting as they are talking, that's pretty cold, Moeckel adds. Throughout the trial, the defense tried to use Emery's borderline personality disorder as a reason for his actions. However, Moeckel believes these were excuses. They try to come up with reasons that he had no control. I believe every step of the way he had control over what he was doing. A jury eventually recommended the death penalty, and the judge followed their lead and gave Emery the death penalty. Moeckel says, "We got the results that we prayed for. It brought a sense of relief that this first part of the journey is over. Rest in peace, to all of those taken from this man's night of rage. And this is my point. I don't know what came over this guy. He didn't have a history of this type of violence that we know of. It's these one little moments of violence that we can't ever take back. Sure, God can forgive him if he's turning his heart and his life over to God. But in the court of law, he does deserve this. And my heart goes out to the family as they're going to be working on recovering for the rest of their lives. My friends, this is the whole purpose of this channel, is to keep you aware of what could go horribly wrong in that one moment. If this is the type of content you like to follow, please smash that subscribe button and hit on that like if you got some value, because that lets me know that you got value. That lets YouTube know there's value here. Show it to more people. And at the end of the day, I want to make sure that the victims' voices are being heard and you're aware of what could go so horribly wrong in this crazy world we live in. My friends, unfortunately, it truly is a crazy world. And now we wait to see, okay, will he die in prison? What will happen down the road? But what I can tell you is this stuff is not done happening. So be careful, be alert, be aware of your surroundings, my friends, and be careful out there. I'm Manny Rodriguez. Thank you for joining me today, and I look forward to serving you again. Peace. Have a great day, my friends. Rest in peace to the victims.